Okay, this is the beginning of a series of videos that I'm referring to as homilies. A homily is, it's like a, well, sometimes considered to be a short sermon, but basically it's looking at a particular piece of text and talking about what that means. It's not exhorting people to be different or any of that kind of thing. It's just simply exploring what might this mean. And the motivation for this comes out of some questions that I've gotten from friends of mine about what does this text mean from your perspective as someone like myself who sees the world through a mystical lens, who understands that everything is an expression of the presence of God. So what would that look like? So what this series will be, at least as I'm intending it at this point, is to be each week looking at the gospel lesson that is presented as a part of the Revised Common Lectionary, which is the way that Catholics, Anglicans, mainline Protestants will look through. Each week there's a different set of lessons throughout the year, and there's a 3-year cycle. So every 3 years the cycle starts again, and so it's the same lessons, but the world changes. And so we have different ways of reflecting on what the ancient texts have to tell us. In this case, we're looking at the Bible, and specifically what I intend to focus on is the gospel lessons, which is only that part of the Bible that is the first 4 books of what we call the New Testament. All right? So we've been reading in the book of Matthew, and we've come up now to the 16th verse, or 16th chapter, verse 21 to 28. And this is not the whole thing, but in this particular verse, Jesus has announced to his disciples that he's going to be going to Jerusalem, and he's inviting them to come with us, but with him. But he wants to let them know what it is that's going to happen there, and there's a pretty good chance that his life will end there. And Peter says, "No, Lord, that can't be true. You can't, no." And Jesus rebukes Peter at this point in this classic phrase, "Get thee behind me, Satan, for you think as humans do rather than seeing through the understanding of the divine." Some have said, "Oh, that's kind of," I thought Peter was his, right-hand man, and he's being so, well, he's actually doing this to him in private. But then he goes to his disciples and he says, "Look, I want you to understand what's going on here." And at this point, he shares with them that if any one of you wants to be my follower, you must deny yourself and take up your cross and follow me. So, what does that mean? What was he talking about, taking up your cross? So that's what I want to explore, is what might that mean? What it meant to some of the disciples was that they actually got themselves crucified too. They didn't, that was no fun. But I don't think that's what he's saying to us. So I want to assume that Matthew, or whoever it was that authored this gospel, writing after the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus, and after the Jerusalem church was formed, and that Peter was now the head of that church, that what Matthew is telling us here is not talking just to those 12 disciples, but to the whole community of the church, saying that if you would be a follower of Jesus, this is what it would mean. That you would take up your cross and follow him, that you would give up your own life so that you have a larger life. And this, I encourage you to read the whole lesson, and I will put a link to it down below in the YouTube so that you can easily find it. But what does that mean? What does that mean to us today? And so I'm going to suggest to you that taking up our cross is something that will naturally happen to us if we are faithful in 3 areas. And I'm going to, let's see, how do I get back to this? So if I am, in fact, able to be my authentic self, I am aware of the world, and of the aim of history, what will necessarily happen is that I encounter my cross. First of all, authentic self. Who we are is largely constructed by who others want us to be, who we've been told we're supposed to be, how it is you're supposed to behave, and we kind of have this image of how do I be who I think others want us to be. And we develop this identity, this I am, this ego, which is my sense of who I am. And it's really important that we have an ego. I have to have some kind of self-identity, but it's also important that I come to understand that that's not really who I am. That's not authentically myself. And so can I discover who my authentic self is as it arises uniquely in me, in you? You are not like anybody else who has ever been or ever will be. You have a different past, you have a different future, you have different abilities. You are a unique person. Who are you? As you are grounded in who you are right now, right here, in this moment, aware of the past, looking to the future, but grounded in your current self, who is that authentically? The second question then is, are we aware of the world around us? Do we know what it is that's going on out in the rest of the world? Are my senses attuned to and paying attention to what's happening around me? How am I affecting others? How's the world affecting me? What's happening in history, in politics, in science, in sociology, in my family? What is happening in the world? Am I aware of what's going on? And am I able to access it in such a way that I know what is true? Which these days is very difficult to do because there's a lot of alternative facts out there. So, am I really aware, fully aware of the world? And the third piece is, do I understand where all of this is going? Does history have an aim? Is there a sense in which evolution is moving in a direction and has a purpose? And in that flow, that rush moving into the future, is there some place that I have in this as my authentic self, aware of the world, and leading towards the future? And one of the ways I think of this in that classic Martin Luther King Jr. used it, but it's actually from Theodore Parker, a speech sermon that he gave back in the 1850s, I think, about the arc of the moral universe, saying that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Are we helping it bend? Have we put our shoulder to the arc of history to help it bend towards justice? When we do that, when we are authentically ourselves, aware of the world, in line with the aims of history, one of the things that will inevitably happen to us is that we will get pushback from people around us. Because the world around us is very invested in it continuing to be the way it is in all of the oppressive and exploitive ways that we have come to live as humans. There's a better way to be, but there are people very invested in keeping it the way it is. And those people will try to stop us, and they will, depending upon how effectively we are addressing the evils of the world, they will push pretty hard against us. That is your cross. So if you live a faithful life, you will come face to face with that cross. And as you live out your life, it will cause you both to suffer greatly and to have the largest life possible. You will have life in Christ. And you don't have to believe in Christianity and Jesus and all that kind of stuff, because this is the reality of our lives, no matter what we believe about some teacher in Galilee who came from Nazareth and all that kind of stuff. So I invite you to be aware of your own journey and where it is leading you, and that there is the potential for you to have a full and meaningful life, but shit will happen. Right? The world is going to push back. All right, this is Sunday, September 3rd, 2023, and I hope you have an awesome day and week, and let's do this again next week.